The warning lights in Kilara's scout ship blazed red as she plummeted through Earth's atmosphere. Her small hooves clicked frantically across the control panel, but nothing responded. The ship's navigation system had failed completely after being hit by an unexpected solar flare, and now the backup systems were failing too. Emergency landing protocols engaged, the ship's computer announced in its calm Zix-Theory voice. Warning. Unfamiliar terrain ahead. Warning. Atmospheric conditions suboptimal. Warning. Predator species detected in landing zone. Kilara's bioluminescent spots pulsed with fear, casting moving shadows across the ship's interior. Her deer-like features reflected in the darkening view screen as she tried one last time to adjust their trajectory. The young maintenance technician had never expected to face an emergency landing, especially not on a Class 3 Predator world. Earth. Of all the planets to crash on, it had to be Earth. The ship screamed through layers of clouds, and Kilara's large eyes widened as she saw white particles swirling through the air. Her database quickly identified it as snow, frozen water crystals common in this planet's colder regions. Under different circumstances, she might have found it beautiful. Right now, it only made her situation more desperate. The ground rushed up to meet her. Kilara braced herself, wrapping her thin limbs around the pilot's chair. Her species' lightweight bones, perfect for quick escapes on her homeworld, were a terrible disadvantage in a crash. The ship struck the ground with a thunderous impact, skidding across what appeared to be a forest clearing. Metal screamed against frozen earth. Emergency foam deployed around her, but not fast enough to prevent her head from striking the console. When Kilara regained consciousness, the first thing she noticed was the cold. The ship's environmental systems had failed, and the frigid air of this alien world was seeping in through multiple hull breaches. Her natural bioluminescence flickered weakly as she assessed her injuries. A broken leg, several cracked ribs, and various cuts and bruises. Survivable, if she could get help. But help was the last thing she could expect on this world. Kilara had studied Earth during her basic training. Humans were classified as apex omnivorous predators in the Galactic database. The educational videos have been very clear about their eating habits. They consumed both plants and animals, yes, but they showed a particular fondness for exotic meat. There were even warnings about their historical tendency to hunt creatures similar to her own species on their world, creatures called deer. She tried to access the ship's emergency beacon, but like everything else, it was dead. The crash had destroyed most of the ship's systems, leaving her with no way to contact her people. Outside, the snow was falling harder, reducing visibility to just a few meters. Kilara's sensitive ears picked up a sound that made her bioluminescent spots dim in terror. The crunch of footsteps in snow, growing closer. Something was approaching the crash site. Her body's natural response was to freeze, an evolutionary trait that had helped her ancestors survive on their homeworld. But here, trapped in the wreckage, it would do her no good. Through the broken view screen, she caught glimpses of a large figure moving through the snowstorm. The shape was unmistakably human, bipedal, tall, and bulky with what she assumed were winter coverings. Her database flashed unhelpful information across her neural link. Humans, highly adaptable predators, enhanced endurance, tool users, capable of surviving in extreme conditions through artificial means. The human was getting closer. Kilara could see more details now. It was carrying something long over its shoulder, probably a weapon. Her spots pulsed with renewed fear as she remembered another detail from her training. Humans were persistence hunters. They would track prey for hours, even days, until it was too exhausted to run. She tried to move, to hide deeper in the wreckage, but her broken leg sent waves of pain through her body. A small cry escaped her, and she immediately regretted it. The human's head turned toward the sound. It had heard her. Kilara's mind raced with everything she knew about humans. They were supposed to be intelligent. Perhaps she could reason with it. But no, the database had been clear about their response to alien life. The few documented encounters with human groups had always ended the same way, with humans attempting to capture or kill the aliens they discovered. The figure reached the ship now, and Keylura could hear it clearing away debris from the entrance. Her heart beat faster as she realized she was about to become the first documented case of human Sixth Theory contact. Unfortunately, she would probably also be the last, as no one would ever know what happened to her. Snow swirled into the cabin as the human finally cleared the entrance. Keylura's translator was still functioning, though barely, and she picked up sounds that it identified as English, one of the dominant human languages. "Hello. Anyone alive in there?" The voice was deep but not threatening. Still, Keylura knew better than to trust her instincts about alien vocalizations. Many predators in the galaxy had evolved soothing voices to lure in their prey. The human ducked into the wreckage, and Keylura got her first clear look at her discoverer. It was larger than she'd expected, covered in thick winter clothing that made it seem even more massive. The thing it carried wasn't a weapon as she'd feared, but some kind of storage container. This was worse. It planned to take parts of her away with it. Her fear reached new heights as the human's light beam found her. She saw its eyes widen in surprise, then narrow in what she assumed was hunting focus. This was it. She was about to become the first Sixth Theory to be eaten by a human. But what the human did next completely contradicted everything in her database. "You're hurt," it said, and the translator rendered the words in a tone of concern. That couldn't be right. The human was setting down its container and reaching toward her, but not in a grabbing motion. Its movements were slow, careful, almost gentle. Keylura's scientific curiosity briefly overcame her fear. This behavior didn't match any of the predicted patterns. The human was acting more like a healer than a hunter. Could her translator be malfunctioning? "I'm a veterinarian," the human said, still moving slowly. "A doctor for animals. I want to help." "You're safe." Keylura's translator provided context for veterinarian, a healer of other species. But that made no sense. Why would a predator species develop healers for other creatures? Unless, could the database be wrong about humans? The last thing Keylura saw before shock and blood loss finally pulled her into unconsciousness was the human reaching for her with what appeared to be medical supplies, its face showing an expression that her database would later identify as worry. Her final thought was that perhaps there was more to humans than the galactic database had led her to believe. She just hoped she would live long enough to find out what. When Keylura regained consciousness, she was surprised to find herself alive. Even more surprising was the warmth surrounding her. Her large eyes blinked open slowly, adjusting to the dim light. She was no longer in her crashed ship, but in some kind of wooden structure. Her database identified it as a barn, a human building typically used for housing animals. The irony wasn't lost on her. Of course, the human would store its prey in a barn. But something wasn't right about that thought. Keylura looked down at her broken leg, expecting to see it mangled. Instead, she found it carefully splinted with what appeared to be professional medical materials. Her wounds had been cleaned and bandaged, and she was lying on something soft and warm. Her database called it a bed. "Oh good, you're awake," a voice said in English, and Keylura's translator did its job. She turned her head to see the same human from before, now without its thick winter coverings. He, the translator provided, was smaller without all the layers, though still much larger than her. He was holding some kind of steaming container. "I'm Marcus," the human said, approaching slowly. "Marcus Chen. I'm a veterinarian, a doctor for animals. Though I have to admit, you're my first alien patient." He gave what her database identified as a smile, a facial expression that could indicate either friendliness or aggression, depending on context. Keylura's spots pulsed with anxiety, but she noticed something odd. The human's hands were wrapped in white bandages. Her species had excellent night vision, and she could see redness around the edges, signs of injury. "Your appendages are damaged," she said through her translator, surprising herself by speaking. "How?" Marcus looked down at his hands as if he'd forgotten about them. Oh, these. Frostbite. Got them when I was carrying you out of the wreck. Had to take my gloves off to check your pulse and treat your immediate injuries. Don't worry about it. It's not serious. Kilara's spots flickered in confusion. The human had injured himself, helping her. This contradicted everything she knew about predator species. Her database had no explanation for this behavior. Here, Marcus said, setting down the steaming container near her. It's just warm broth. Your body temperature was dangerously low when I found you. This should help, and it's bland enough that it shouldn't upset your system too much. I did a basic analysis of your biology while you were unconscious. Hope you don't mind. Had to make sure I didn't give you anything harmful. Kilara sniffed the liquid cautiously. Her chemical sensors detected nothing dangerous, just water, minerals, and some basic proteins. Still, she hesitated. Marcus seemed to understand her concern. Look, he said, taking a sip from the container first. It's safe. I promise I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm a doctor. My job is to heal. This made no sense to Kilara. But humans are predators, she said finally. The database says you eat creatures like me. Marcus's face did something complicated that her translator couldn't quite interpret. Ah, he said, I think I understand the confusion. Yes, humans can eat meat, but we don't eat intelligent beings. And more importantly, we don't eat patients. He paused, then added, most humans these days don't even eat earth deer anymore. We're pretty good at growing our own food. Kilara's scientific training kicked in, and she found herself fascinated despite her fear. But why help me? I am not of your species. Because you needed help, Marcus said simply, as if this explained everything. That's what doctors do. We help those who need it, regardless of species. He gestured to the walls of the barn, which Kilara now noticed were lined with medical equipment and recovery pens. Some contained earth animals, both predator and prey species, all being treated for various injuries. This is my wildlife rehabilitation center, Marcus explained. I treat injured wild animals and release them when they're healed. Everything from bears to rabbits. Speaking of which, he checked some kind of monitoring device. Your vital signs are stabilizing nicely. The bone-knitting compound I used on your leg seems to be compatible with your physiology. You should be able to walk in a few days. Kilara's spots pulsed with a new emotion. Wonder. She was starting to understand something that would revolutionize her species' understanding of humans. They weren't just predators who could choose not to hunt. They were something else entirely. May I ask questions? She said hesitantly. About humans. Our database seems to be incomplete. Marcus smiled again. And this time, Kilara was certain it was the friendly version. Only if I can ask questions too. I've got to admit, treating an alien is the most interesting medical challenge I've had in years. He pulled up a chair, keeping his movements slow and predictable. But first, drink your broth before it gets cold. Doctor's orders. Over the next few hours, as Kilara sipped the warm liquid, she and Marcus exchanged information. She learned that humans' omnivorous nature hadn't just influenced their diet. It had shaped their entire approach to life. They could understand both predator and prey mentalities because they had evolved with aspects of both. This had somehow led to a capacity for empathy that stretched beyond their own species. She watched in amazement as Marcus treated his other patients, moving from an injured wolf to a small rabbit with the same gentle care he had shown her. Her database had classified humans as dangerous due to unpredictable behavior. But watching Marcus work, she realized their behavior wasn't unpredictable at all. They simply had more choices than most species, and some of them, like Marcus, chose to heal rather than hunt. Your hands, she said suddenly, noticing him wince as he changed her bandages. They still hurt from saving me. It's nothing, Marcus assured her, part of the job. No, Kilara insisted, her spots pulsing with determination. I am a maintenance technician. I know much about repairing things. Perhaps I can help repair you too." Marcus looked surprised, then pleased. "Well," he said, "I suppose that would make us even. Though you should know, helping doesn't have to be about keeping score." That was the moment Keelara realized she wasn't just experiencing first contact with a human. She was experiencing her first friendship with one. Her spots glowed with a warm, steady light that had nothing to do with fear. Outside, the snow continued to fall. But inside Marcus's barn, something new was growing. An understanding between species that would soon challenge everything the galaxy thought it knew about humans. 5 days after her crash, Keelara stood carefully on her healing leg, watching Marcus treat a young mountain lion with an infected paw. Her spots pulsed with interest as the human worked, his movements gentle despite the predator's size and strength. "Remarkable," she said, using her translator. "On my world, no one would dare treat an apex predator this way. We would simply let nature take its course." Marcus cleaned the infection while keeping the sedated animal stable. "That's the interesting thing about humans," he said, applying medicine to the paw. "We've never been good at letting nature take its course. We always want to help, to fix things." Over the past few days, Keelara had learned more about humans than all her species databases contained. She had discovered that Marcus lived alone in this remote location by choice, preferring the company of his animal patients to the busy human cities. Her database had marked this as typical predator behavior, seeking isolated territory. But as usual, the database was wrong. "You chose this location to help more creatures," she said, understanding dawning. "The mountains have more wildlife in need of care." "Exactly." Marcus smiled, finishing the bandage on the mountain lion's paw. "Though I have to admit, you're the most interesting patient I've had by far. Speaking of which, how's the leg feeling today?" Keelara took a few careful steps, her hooves clicking softly on the barn's wooden floor. "The bone-knitting compound is working well. Your medical knowledge is surprisingly compatible with my biology." "That's because good medicine is about understanding patterns," Marcus explained, washing his hands. "Whether it's a mountain lion, a deer, or an alien that looks kind of like a deer but glows in the dark, bodies have certain ways they need to work. Once you understand those patterns, helping becomes possible." Keelara's spots flickered with amusement at his description of her appearance. She had learned that this was okay, showing her bioluminescent reactions openly. Marcus didn't see them as signs of weakness or prey behavior, but as simple communication. Her attention was drawn to a small screen in Marcus's office area. It showed weather patterns, and none of them looked good. "Another storm approaches," she noted. "Yeah, it's going to be a big one," Marcus agreed. "Which means we'll probably get more patients. Wildlife has a hard time in weather like this." He paused, looking at her with concern. "Are you warm enough? I can adjust the heating system again." Keelara felt a new emotion she had learned was called touched, affected by someone else's care. "I am adequate," she assured him. "My species evolved for warmer climates, but your heating technologies are efficient." Just then, they heard a commotion outside. Marcus grabbed his winter gear and medical kit, a routine Keelara had watched many times now. But this time, she made a decision. "I will help," she said firmly. Marcus looked surprised. "Are you sure? Your leg is strong enough," she finished. "I am a maintenance technician. I understand systems, how things work together. Perhaps this knowledge can be useful." Marcus grinned and handed her some basic medical supplies. "All right then. Welcome to the team, Keelara." They found an injured elk near the barn, its leg caught in some old farming wire. Instead of running from them, the elk seemed to sense their intentions. Keelara watched in amazement as Marcus approached the massive creature, speaking softly. "See how he's standing," Marcus explained as they worked. Weight shifted to the good legs, but not panicking. "Animals can sense when you want to help them. It's all about projecting calm and good intentions." Keelara's spots pulsed with revelation. Like you did with me, she said quietly. Marcus nodded as they carefully freed the elk's leg. Exactly. Fear and pain are universal languages. So is comfort. Working together, they cleaned and treated the elk's wound. Kilara found that her natural night vision and steady hooves were perfect for holding supplies and providing light. Her technical knowledge helped her understand Marcus's instructions quickly, and soon they had developed an efficient system. As they watched the treated elk disappear into the woods, Kilara realized something important. "You're teaching me," she said. "Well, you're teaching me too," Marcus replied. "I never knew alien biology could be so similar to Earth life. Your bioluminescence is fascinating. It's actually helped me understand some deep-sea creatures better." They headed back to the barn as the storm clouds gathered. Inside, Kilara helped Marcus check on their other patients: the mountain lion, 3 rabbits, an owl with a broken wing, and a young bear recovering from hibernation sickness. "I need to update our database," Kilara said suddenly. "Oh." Marcus was checking the bear's vitals. "Yes, it says humans are dangerous because they can be both predator and prey. But that's not right at all." Her spots pulsed with excitement as she worked out the theory. Humans are remarkable exactly because they can be both. You understand all perspectives. You can hunt, but you can also heal. You can take life, but you choose to save it instead. Marcus looked thoughtful. "Never considered it that way. We just do what feels right." "That's just it," Kilara continued. "Your species' adaptability didn't just make you good hunters. It made you good everything. Whatever you choose to be." She gestured at the barn full of healing animals. "You chose this." The storm hit then, snow and wind howling outside. But inside the barn was warm and quiet, filled with the peaceful sounds of sleeping animals and humming medical equipment. Kilara moved among the patients, checking their readings with her growing medical knowledge, while Marcus prepared medications. "When my people find me," Kilara said softly, "they will not believe this was possible. A human treating aliens and Earth predators with equal care. They will think I was hallucinating from crash injuries." Marcus laughed. "Well then, we'll just have to show them, won't we? Nothing convinces like seeing something with your own eyes." Kilara's spots glowed with happiness. She had crashed on what she thought was a predator's world, expecting to be eaten. Instead, she had found something revolutionary. A species whose greatest strength wasn't their ability to hunt, but their ability to care. Outside, the storm raged on, but Kilara felt no fear. She had learned that sometimes the most dangerous-looking places could turn out to be the safest, and the most feared species could turn out to be the kindest. Her database had been wrong about humans, and she couldn't wait to help correct that mistake. But first, they had patients to tend to. And that, she had learned, was what really mattered. 2 weeks after Kilara's crash, the snow finally stopped falling. The morning sun sparkled across the white landscape as Kilara helped Marcus with their morning rounds. Her leg had healed completely, thanks to the combination of human medical knowledge and her own species' quick healing abilities. She was checking the mountain lion's healing paw when her antennae suddenly twitched. A familiar vibration rippled through the air, one that made her spots pulse rapidly. "Marcus," she called out. "A ship approaches. My people, they're coming." Marcus looked up from where he was treating the young bear. "Well," he said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, "we knew they'd find you eventually. You ready for this?" Kilara's spots flickered with mixed emotions. "They will not understand at first," she said. "They will think I am your prisoner, or that you have damaged my mind. Our database's warnings about humans are very specific. Then we'll just have to show them otherwise," Marcus said calmly, though Kilara noticed him straightening his clothes and medical equipment. Even after all this time, he still wanted to make a good impression. The sound grew louder, and soon even Marcus could hear the low hum of Zixtheri engines. Through the barn's windows, they watched a sleek rescue ship descend into the clearing near Kilara's crash site. It was much larger than her scout ship, designed for search and rescue operations. Remember, Keelara said quickly, they will be armed. Do not make any sudden moves. Marcus nodded, putting on what Keelara had learned was his professional doctor face. Together, they walked out of the barn and into the snow. The rescue ship's doors opened with a hydraulic hiss, and 4 Zixtheri emergency responders emerged. Like Keelara, they resembled glowing, deer-like creatures, but they were larger and wore the distinctive armor of the rescue corps. Their spots were pulsing warning patterns, and their handheld devices were definitely not medical scanners. Keelara, the lead responder, called out in their native language, "Step away from the human predator. We will cover your retreat." Keelara didn't move. Instead, she did something that made all 4 rescuers freeze in shock. She stepped closer to Marcus. "Stand down," she called back in Zixtheri. "This human is Marcus Chen. He is a healer, and he saved my life." The rescuer's spots pulsed with confusion and disbelief. The leader, whose uniform identified him as Captain Zexstar, stepped forward cautiously. "Keelara, you've been through a traumatic experience. The human may have manipulated you." "Oh, for Star's sake," Keelara interrupted, her spots flashing with annoyance. She switched to English for Marcus's benefit. "Marcus, please show them your medical center. Actions speak louder than words, yes." Marcus nodded and gestured toward the barn. "Please, come see for yourselves. I understand your concern for Keelara, but I assure you, she's been safe here." The rescue team's translators processed his words, adding to their confusion. This wasn't how predators were supposed to act. Cautiously, with weapons still ready but lowered, they followed Keelara and Marcus into the barn. The scene inside made them stop in their tracks. The mountain lion was sleeping peacefully in its recovery pen. The young bear was getting its morning checkup. The owl spread its healing wing, while the rabbits hopped contentedly in their enclosure. And throughout the barn, advanced medical equipment hummed quietly. "Impossible," Captain Zexstar whispered. His spots were pulsing patterns that Keelara recognized as cognitive dissonance. "The database says humans are apex predators. They hunt. They kill. We can," Marcus said quietly, "but we choose not to. At least, not when there's a better way." He walked over to his medical supplies and began preparing his morning treatments, ignoring the weapons still half pointed at him. "Keelara, could you help me with the mountain lion's bandages? She trusts you now." Keelara moved to help without hesitation, her movements sure and practiced. The rescue team watched in amazement as the small maintenance technician they'd come to save confidently treated Earth's apex predators alongside a human. "You taught her medical care?" one of the rescuers asked Marcus incredulously. "We taught each other," Marcus corrected, showing them his hands. "See these healing frostbite marks? Got them while rescuing her from the crash. Keelara helped treat them. And then she helped me understand how her species biology works. She's quite skilled." Captain Zexstar's spots were pulsing so rapidly they nearly created a strobe effect. But you're an apex predator. Our database says." "Your database," Keelara interrupted firmly, "is incomplete. Humans are not simply predators who can choose not to hunt. They are caretakers who can hunt if they must. There's a difference." She finished changing the mountain lion's bandages and turned to face her people. "They are more complex than we imagined. More complete." "It's true," Marcus added, pulling up his medical records on a nearby screen. "I've documented everything about Keelara's treatment and recovery. She was never a prisoner here. She stayed to heal, then chose to stay longer to learn and help. She's become an excellent veterinary assistant." The rescue team huddled together, their spots creating a dancing light show as they communicated in the quick pulses that humans couldn't fully perceive. Keelara waited patiently, standing beside Marcus as he continued his morning rounds. Finally, Captain Zexstar stepped forward. His spots had settled into a more regular pattern. "Keelara, is this truly what you wish us to report?" It will challenge everything our people believe about humans. Report the truth, Keelara said simply. Report that when I crashed on this predator world, expecting to be eaten, I instead found healing. Report that humans are not what we thought. They are better. Report that Marcus Chen treated an alien crash survivor with the same care he gives to Earth's most dangerous predators and gentlest prey animals. She paused, her spots glowing with conviction. Report that perhaps it is time for our people to update more than just our database. Perhaps it is time to update our understanding of what is possible. The captain's spots flickered with something new, hope mixed with curiosity. He looked at Marcus, who was now treating the rabbits while simultaneously keeping an eye on the bear's readings, and made a decision. We will need to document everything, he said, for the official record. Keelara's spots pulsed with joy. Then you should stay for at least one full day of rounds, she said. Marcus has already prepared extra sleeping quarters, just in case. The rescue team looked at Marcus in surprise. He shrugged. Keelara said you'd come eventually. I figured you might need time to understand. Speaking of which, he gestured to the medical supplies. Would any of you like to learn basic Earth animal care? Keelara has been an excellent student, and I'm always happy to teach. The rescuers looked at each other, then at Keelara, who nodded encouragingly. One by one, they set down their weapons and stepped forward, their spots now pulsing with cautious curiosity. Outside, the morning sun continued to rise over the snow-covered mountains, shining down on a small barn where the galaxy's understanding of humanity was about to change forever. 3 years after Keelara's crash landing on Earth, Marcus Chen's Wildlife Rehabilitation Center looked very different. The original barn had been expanded into a sprawling complex, with sections dedicated to both Earth animals and extraterrestrial creatures. Above the main entrance, 2 signs glowed side by side, one in English and one in Zixtheri script. Earth Zixtheri Joint Species Medical Center. Keelara stood in her customized medical bay, her spots glowing with pride as she treated a young Zixtheri explorer with a sprained ankle. Through the window, she could see Marcus giving a tour to a group of wide-eyed Zixtheri medical students, their spots pulsing with excitement as they watched him handle an injured eagle. And that's how you wrap a compression bandage, Keelara told her patient, finishing the treatment. Try to stay off it for at least 2 cycles, and remember, Earth's gravity is stronger than what you're used to. The young explorer's spots flickered with embarrassment. I never thought I'd be treated for clumsiness by the famous Keelara, he said. Is it true what they say? Did you really expect the human to eat you when you first crashed here? Keelara laughed, her spots dancing with amusement. The old database did say humans were dangerous predators, she admitted. But as you can see, the truth was much more interesting. After the rescue team's report 3 years ago, everything had changed. The Galactic Council had been skeptical at first, but the evidence was undeniable. Videos of Marcus treating both Earth predators and Zixtheri patients had gone viral across the galaxy. The old database entry about humans had been completely rewritten. Keelara looked at the new entry sometimes, just to remind herself how far they'd come. Humans. Classification updated from dangerous predator species to advanced nurturing omnivores. Note: humans demonstrate unprecedented capacity for cross-species empathy and medical care. Their evolutionary history as omnivores has created unique insights into both predator and prey psychology, making them invaluable allies in xenomedicine. A familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. Keelara, come quickly. Marcus called from the main treatment area. The wolf pack is back. Keelara hurried to join him, her hooves clicking on the specially designed floor. Through the observation window, she could see a pack of wolves emerging from the forest. They were regulars at the center. Marcus had treated their alpha female 2 years ago, and now the pack brought their injured members to the center voluntarily. Just like old times, Marcus said as they prepared their equipment. Remember when you were terrified of helping me treat the mountain lion? Remember when you got frostbite saving a crashed alien? Keelara countered, her spots glowing warmly. They worked together smoothly, their movements synchronized by years of practice. The Zixtheri medical students watched in amazement as the wolves allowed themselves to be examined, while Marcus explained the procedure in both English and basic Zixtheri. "Notice how they trust us," he told the students. "Every species, whether from Earth or beyond, can sense genuine care. That's the foundation of xenomedicine. Understanding transcends biology." Later that evening, after the wolves had been treated and the students had returned to their dormitories, Keelara found Marcus in his office. He was looking at a framed photo on his wall, the original rescue team standing awkwardly with him in front of the old barn, their spots showing clear confusion, while Keelara stood proudly between them. "Thinking deep thoughts?" she asked, settling into her specially designed chair. "Just remembering," Marcus replied. "You know, when I first built this place, I thought I'd spend my life treating Earth wildlife in the middle of nowhere. Now look at us. We're training the next generation of cross-species doctors." Keelara's spots pulsed thoughtfully. "The galaxy is changing," she said. "Just last week, I heard that 3 more human wildlife centers have opened their doors to Zixtheri patients, and our people are starting to build rehabilitation centers for Earth species on our colonies. It's more than that," Marcus said, turning to face her. "We're proving that being a predator species doesn't mean you have to be dangerous. Humans can hunt, yes, but we can also heal. We can be fierce, but we can also be gentle. And now your people are learning the same thing, that helping others isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of evolution." A soft chime interrupted them, the evening medical alert. Together, they headed out for their final rounds of the day. In the recovery ward, Earth animals and alien visitors rested peacefully side by side. The mountain lion cubs from their latest rescue played with a healing Zixtheri child, while their mother watched calmly from her enclosure. "Oh," Keelara suddenly remembered something. "The council approved our expansion proposal. Next year, we'll be able to accept patients from 3 more species." Marcus grinned. "Good timing. I just got a message from that Centaurian medical group. They want to send some observers. Apparently, word is spreading that Earth's wildlife doctors might know something about treating multiple species." Keelara's spots glowed with satisfaction. "Quite a change from dangerous predator species, isn't it?" As they finished their rounds, a new group of Zixtheri arrived at the center. Families this time, with children whose spots pulsed with excitement rather than fear. They had come to Earth not as scared explorers, but as eager visitors, ready to learn about the planet's wildlife and the humans who cared for them. "Welcome to the Earth Zixtheri Joint Species Medical Center." Keelara greeted them, her spots glowing warmly. "Would you like to meet our resident human healer? I must warn you, though, he's nothing like what the old database might have told you." The children gathered around Marcus, their spots creating a dancing light show of curiosity and wonder. As he began showing them how to gently approach injured animals, Keelara watched with pride. She thought about that terrified maintenance technician from 3 years ago, who had expected to be eaten by a predator and instead found a friend. The galaxy had much to learn from humans, she realized. Not because they were the strongest, or the fastest, or even the smartest, but because they had learned the greatest lesson of all, that true strength lies not in the ability to hunt, but in the choice to heal. Outside the center, the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in colors that made both human and Zixtheri spots glow with appreciation. Inside, predator and prey, alien and earthborn, healer and patient, all rested safely under one roof, protected by a simple truth that Keelara had learned on that snowy day 3 years ago. Sometimes the most dangerous-looking creatures turn out to be the gentlest souls of all. And that, she thought as she watched Marcus teach the children, was the kind of discovery that could change not just a database, but an entire galaxy.